Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. Octopuses and squids have 3 hearts. 2 of them serve to maintain and control the gills. According to the results of a study, playing Tetris can help reduce symptoms of post-traumatic stress and can even help reduce insomnia. Some people believe that adding a little salt to water will make it boil faster, but that is a myth. It can actually make the process slower. Scientists can determine the spherical volume of the entire universe with just 39 decimals of pi, and NASA only uses 15. So it is not really necessary to know many decimals of that number considered magical. The wasabi you get when you buy sushi is actually horseradish. Real wasabi is much more expensive and much more intensely spicy. The authentic version comes from a plant that is difficult to cultivate and is often mixed with coloring and mustard to imitate it. The British invented the famous rumor that if you eat many carrots, your eyesight will improve during World War II. They did this because they had already invented radar to detect airplanes and did not want other armies to find out. So they simply said their soldiers had a diet high in carrots. Babies do not dream. Neuroscientists concluded that dreams begin at around 4 or 5 years of age. This is related to the development of language and memory, which are necessary to form conscious narratives during sleep. Nanoparticles of gold can be found in your hair. In fact, in our body, there are 0.007 grains of gold, which, if you extracted it, would be enough to buy a piece of gum. Polar bear liver has so much vitamin A that if a human ate it, they would be poisoned. Consuming it could cause hypervitaminosis A, a dangerous condition that causes dizziness, liver damage, and other serious effects in the body. Speaking of armpit sweat, if women apply a little of this liquid to their lips, it can help them relax and improve their sense of humor, according to a study conducted in 2003. The United States Navy has so much equipment, weapons, and supplies stored in caves in Norway that they would be enough to sustain a brigade of 15,000 soldiers for 30 days. Gum does not take 7 years to digest, and it does not stay stuck inside your body. In reality, we cannot digest gum even in 7 years, but just as the gum you swallowed went in, it will come out the next day. The Renaissance artist Michelangelo had to illustrate his grocery list, since his servant, the one who went to buy the items, could not read. He drew small sketches of bread, fish, or wine to make sure he bought exactly what he needed, something common in a time with low literacy. Some black bears are born with white fur. They are called spirit bears. They are neither albino nor polar bears. Their color is due to a recessive gene that reduces pigment, and they are considered sacred animals by indigenous peoples of Canada. Even though the blue whale has the largest heart in the animal kingdom, and giraffes have the largest heart among land animals, dogs have the largest heart of all animals in proportion to their body size. The saguaro is the tallest cactus that exists. It can grow more than 59 feet tall and also live more than 200 years. It grows very slowly, only a few inches per year, and many birds use it as shelter and a place to build their nests. To better understand something, it is recommended to discuss it with yourself. This helps you gain different points of view and obtain more knowledge. This process activates areas of the brain related to reasoning and memory, strengthening learning and understanding. Hair and nails are made of a substance called keratin and are dead cells. That is why nothing is felt when they are cut. Only the hair root and the base of the nails have living cells. Unlike most oils, the ones extracted from the clove tree and the wintergreen plant are heavier and sink in water. Hershey's chocolate does not contain the minimum amount of cocoa required to be considered chocolate in Great Britain. Because of that, it is legally classified as milk chocolate with different requirements. In addition, its flavor is different because it uses a process that produces a characteristic slight acidic note. While meat contains 17 to 40% protein, crickets contain 65 to 70%. That is why they say they are the food of the future. Quinoa is so densely nutritious that it is being considered by NASA as a crop in the Controlled Ecological Life Support Program for long-duration space expeditions. The phrase hacer un oso, which means to feel embarrassed or experience secondhand embarrassment, is believed to come from a story from the Middle Ages in which some people had pet bears that they trained to perform dances and other acts that could be considered ridiculous, so that people would give them money in the street. Soon afterward, this became a well-known spectacle, and people began adopting it as a phrase when someone was doing something ridiculous. A lightning bolt can reach a temperature higher than the surface of the sun, but this only occurs over a very small area and for fractions of a second. Theoretically, if you move away from the sun at a speed of 99% of the speed of light, you would still observe sunlight passing by you at the speed of light. This is according to the theory of relativity. There is a mountain of ordinary table salt in Germany that is left over from the chemical company K plus S. It measures approximately 820 feet and contains around 200 million tons of salt. People affectionately call it Monte Kali or Kilimanjaro, referring to the highest points in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro. It is considered a source of pollution for the region, but the company has permission to dump salt there until the year 2030. Giant anteaters do not produce acid in their stomachs, unlike all other mammals. Instead, their food dissolves and is digested using the venom produced by the ants they eat. Dogs do not have the ability to feel guilt, shame, or remorse. However, when their owners yell at them or scold them, they can feel sadness, which some people may confuse with guilt. Farmers spent more than 300 years trying to cultivate vanilla in Europe without success. It was not until 1836 that they realized the vanilla plant was pollinated by an insect that did not live in Europe, making it impossible no matter how hard they tried. Cats can experience something called whisker stress from having to eat from a pet bowl that is too small. This happens because they are very sensitive to confined spaces. Your cat may have stress if it does things such as trying to remove the food with its paws or knocking it over. In the 1920s, there was beach police responsible for measuring the length of women's swimsuits to ensure no one wore one that was too small or revealing. If a woman did not comply with the protocol, she was forced to cover up or go home. And in some extreme cases, they were arrested. In Australia, kangaroo meat is sold in supermarkets and served as a dish in restaurants. It is promoted as a healthier alternative to beef due to its low fat percentage. Chin tattoos on women have very important cultural significance in Maori culture. They are called moko kawai, and recently Orini Kaipara became the first primetime news presenter in New Zealand to wear one of these tattoos. When tomatoes arrived in Europe in the 16th century and began to become popular in food, many people saw them as a suspicious fruit. Some even believed they were a preferred ingredient of witches in flying potions, or that they could turn people into werewolves. Beaver's teeth can have a slightly orange or very orange coloration. This is due to the high concentration of iron they contain, and it is one of the reasons their teeth are among the strongest and most durable in the animal kingdom. One of the most popular songs on iTunes consists of 10 minutes of silence and is called a very good song. It was named that way on purpose, so it would be the first to play in alphabetical order, since many car stereos automatically play songs in that order, giving people 10 free minutes to choose another song they like. In 1931, a man stole an airplane, but all charges were dropped because at that time, airplanes were not considered vehicles, so there was no law against this type of event. Before color television was invented, 75% of people claimed that their dreams were in black and white. It is believed this was influenced by daily exposure to black and white media, which shaped how the brain imagined scenes. Workers at Disney World have a procedure to evacuate people in case of an emergency in which they hold hands, form a human barrier, and walk toward the exit until all visitors are outside. Christopher Columbus and his crew were the first Europeans to see and taste pineapples. This happened on his second voyage to the Americas in 1493. In the Pixar movie Inside Out, when Riley's dad is daydreaming, in the United States version he dreams about ice hockey, but it was changed to soccer in the international version, since it is more popular in the rest of the world. A single strand of spaghetti is called a spaghetto. According to Italian grammar, spaghetti is a plural form. A Chinese food company broke the record for the longest noodle in the world in 2017. It measured a little more than 9,843 feet long. To make it, approximately 88 pounds of flour and around 6.87 gallons of water were used. When finished, it was divided into 400 dishes for the workers to eat. Peter Benchley, the author of the novel Jaws, on which the famous movie is based, dedicated the last decade of his life to shark conservation as a way of apologizing for the negative image his work created of these animals. The only felines that live in groups are lions. All the others are solitary and only come together to reproduce. Bulls do not actually get angry or attracted to the color red as was previously believed. They cannot distinguish colors well. What attracts them is the movement of the matador's cloth. There is an anecdote about the British government in India establishing a reward for every captured cobra in order to eliminate them. This had the opposite effect. People began breeding cobras to obtain the reward money and, as a result, the population of wild cobras increased when the program was canceled and the breeders released them. 90% of text messages or messaging app messages are read within 3 minutes of being sent. So if that time has already passed, it is very likely that you have been left unread. Roman Emperor Julius Caesar and the Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra, had a son whom they named Little Caesar. This caused a scandal in Rome due to the possibility of being ruled by an Egyptian in the future. There is a group of people native to Japan called the Ainu. Their culture is very different from that of traditional Japanese people. The Ainu like to get tattoos around their mouths and often raise bears. These tattoos were especially common in women and symbolized maturity, identity, and spiritual connection with their community. The city of Venice in Italy is supported by millions of ancient wooden posts. Despite their age, they do not rot due to the lack of oxygen underwater. Fleas experience an acceleration force of around 100 g when they jump, which is 100 times the force of gravity. This is much greater than the launch of a space rocket or the most extreme roller coaster. It would be impossible for a human to withstand that pressure. During the Mexican-American War of 1846, 600 Irish immigrants deserted the United States Army and fought with Mexico. This happened because, just like in their country of origin, Catholicism was the predominant religion in Mexico. Canada is the most educated country in the world. 80% of its inhabitants have college education, and only 1% of the population is illiterate. Google's homepage has always had a minimalist design, but this was not intentional. Founder Larry Page did not have much knowledge of HTML, so that was all he could create at first. This ended up contributing to its success because people liked that it was not as complex as other search engines. Gorillas often make vocalizations similar to humming or singing happy melodies while eating. And if it is their favorite food, or if they have plenty of food, they sing louder and more enthusiastically. It is a way they communicate with each other. People who grow up in environments with warm climates tend to be more friendly than those who grow up in places with extremely cold temperatures. This may be related to more social outdoor lifestyles, where frequent interactions strengthen social skills and cooperation. The blue-footed booby is a bird that can only be found in the Galapagos Islands and nearby coasts. Its main characteristic is its blue feet. This color comes from carotenoid pigments in its fish-based diet. In ancient Egypt, when someone wanted to bring a book from another region of the world, it was immediately taken to the Library of Alexandria to be copied. The original stayed in the library, while the copy was returned to the owner. Thinking in a language that is not your native language can make you make more rational decisions. This happens because it reduces the emotional load associated with words, allowing situations to be analyzed with greater logic and less influence from impulses. The training of Mike Tyson, the boxer who bit his opponent's ear once, consisted of waking up at 4 in the morning to run 5 miles. Then he did 2,000 sit-ups, 500 push-ups, 500 dips, and 30 minutes of neck exercises. He did this 6 times a week. The luxury watch brands Rolex and Tudor belong to the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, which means they cannot be divided or sold, and they do not distribute dividends. The foundation does not pay taxes, and the profits are used to support initiatives that help advance human knowledge, although the exact figures of their donations are not known. Amazon Web Services offers physical data transport. If you need to move large amounts of information, they bring you a truck with 100 petabytes of hard drives where the data is copied and transported to its new destination without needing an internet connection. Sending 100 petabytes of information would take years over a high-speed internet connection. Chameleons do not actually camouflage themselves with their surroundings. Their color change is due to the relaxation of their cells that contain crystals which affect how light is reflected. They change color as a form of communication and also as protection against extreme temperatures. When during the filming of the movie Titanic, the studio began having budget problems, director James Cameron offered them his percentage of the movie's profits, but the studio refused because they thought it would not make much money. As we know now, Titanic is the second highest grossing film in all of history. Although the African gray parrot can memorize and imitate a large number of words and is one of the most intelligent animals in the world, the species did not pass the mirror test. When they see a mirror, they do not realize it is themselves and attack their own reflection. People who live near the stairs that became famous from the scene in the movie Joker in the Bronx, New York, expressed their rejection with signs and graffiti because hundreds of fans went there to take photos imitating the Joker to post on social media. One of the graffiti messages said, "My poverty is not your photo session." A pineapple plant can remain alive and produce fruit for more than 50 years. Although each plant produces only one pineapple at a time, it can generate new shoots called suckers, which continue the cycle and allow the same plant to survive for decades. According to studies, unlike what people believe, saying bad words helps us relax and feel calmer. Maybe that is why I am upset. I better go to your house now. The family of the mother of the YouTuber Markiplier comes from North Korea, from where they had to escape before the Korean War began. In 2022, Markiplier released a documentary in which he explores the origin of his family. Colombia has the largest population of hippopotamuses outside of Africa, and they are all descendants of the hippopotamuses that lived in Pablo Escobar's private zoo, which were released when his property was confiscated by the police. Today, they represent a threat to local biodiversity. In the year 2000, the actors of the series Friends did not want to lower their salary of $1 million per episode. So the NBC network produced promotional ads that said, "You have loved them for 7 years, and now see how it all ends this Thursday in the final episode." After seeing this, the actors quickly accepted the salary reduction. The series lasted 4 more years. Pineapples are native to South America, specifically between Paraguay and Brazil. From there, they spread to Mexico and other places on the continent until in 1493, Christopher Columbus found them when he visited the island of Guadeloupe and took them back to Europe. Despite being an important part of the development and marketing campaign of the movie Madam Web, the character Julia Carpenter, played by actress Sydney Sweeney, only appears for a few seconds wearing the original comic suit in one scene. The same happens with the other two Spider-Women. Researchers studying whether monkeys could recognize themselves in mirrors observed that the first thing they did after realizing it was themselves was inspect parts of their body they normally could not see. They even twisted into unusual positions to observe themselves better. Coffee and tea plants produce caffeine, but the two evolved independently. That means caffeine developed separately twice. In Titanic, Jack mentions that he went to Lake Wissota when he was a child, which is a mistake in the movie because Lake Wissota in Wisconsin, United States, was not formed until 1917, 5 years after the Titanic sank. The movies Spider-Man, Zoolander, Men in Black 2, Stuart Little 2, and Armageddon had to be digitally altered, or some scenes had to be changed. This was done as a sign of respect, because they contained scenes involving the Twin Towers of New York. According to research from the Chinese Academy of Medical Sciences, people who eat spicy dishes 6 to 7 times per week have 14% less probability of dying prematurely compared to people who eat spicy food less than 2 times per week. This study was surely sponsored by a hot sauce brand. The first person who officially received the title of president in the world was the American George Washington. It was such a new position that many wanted to call him the King of the United States instead. In 2008 in Nebraska, United States, a law was implemented that allowed people to leave newborn babies they could not care for at a designated place. But since the law did not specify an age limit, almost all the children left were around 10 years old. There were even some 17 years old. Damage Control is a Marvel comic series released in 1988 that focuses on a fictional company responsible for cleaning up the mess left after superhero battles. Unlike typical comic stories, Damage Control offers a humorous and grounded perspective, exploring how the collateral damage from fights between superheroes and supervillains affects ordinary people. Some of the sound effects used in Tony Stark's armor in the movie Iron Man were taken from video games from the 8-bit era, such as the Space Invaders cannon sound that is used when Jarvis locks onto a target. A photographer took photos of a street mime in 1974 in New York. 35 years later, he realized it was Robin Williams before he became famous. During the Paris attacks of 2015, which occurred in the city while a soccer match between France and Germany was taking place, the Germany national team could not return to their hotel due to what was happening, so they had to sleep on mattresses in the stadium. As a gesture of solidarity, the France national team also slept there. Passports, as we know them today, began to be used after the Second World War. Before that, each region had its own rules, and generally, people could travel anywhere without requiring documents. Leonardo da Vinci created blueprints to build a mechanical knight. a creation similar to a robot or animatronic that operated using pulley mechanisms. When these blueprints were found almost 500 years later and built according to the instructions, the design worked perfectly. The classic engine of Ford cars from 1932 weighed 507 pounds and produced 64 horsepower. In contrast, the new engine Ford uses in most of its cars produces more than triple the power and weighs only half as much. There was a chilling period of 50 million years when there were no trees on planet Earth, but sharks already existed. Sharks appeared more than 400 million years ago, long before the first modern trees. William Shakespeare, in addition to being one of the most recognized writers of all time, was also a businessman. He used to buy large quantities of seeds, grains, and cereals, and later sell them at higher prices when there was scarcity, but he stopped doing it when the government discovered it and prohibited him from continuing. The first antidotes against venom from animals such as snakes were obtained by milking venom from those same species and injecting it into sheep, from which antibodies were later extracted. At a university in Denmark, they developed jellyfish snacks by drying them until they reached a consistency similar to potato chips. This process removes almost all the water and leaves a crunchy texture, in addition to being a sustainable alternative due to the abundance of jellyfish in the oceans. The English drive on the left side of the road, and their cars have the steering wheel on the other side because, in medieval times, knights traveled on the left so they could defend themselves using their sword with their dominant hand, which in 90% of the population is the right. The car brand Skoda tests the horn of its cars for the European market a total of 150,000 times, but for the cars they sell in India, they test it 500,000 times. This is due to the widespread use of the horn in that country. According to a study, at the busiest intersections of cities in India, a horn sounds every 3 seconds. Most tanks used during World War II, despite appearing very large in photos, were actually about the size of a modern subcompact pickup truck. However, their total weight was equivalent to that of 10 pickup trucks. Pilot whales, orcas, and human females, meaning women, are the only 3 mammals that go through menopause. After that, older females often lead the group and use their experience to find food and protect the younger ones, increasing their chances of survival. People who are ambidextrous, meaning they do not have a dominant hand and have equal ability in both hands, make up only 1% of the population. This ability is associated with more balanced communication between both hemispheres of the brain, something uncommon. There is a species of squirrel called the vampire squirrel. It has the largest tail proportionally of all animals, since it is 30% larger than its own body. It is carnivorous, and there are legends that it eats animals larger than itself, which is why it received that nickname. The star in the Sword of the Orion constellation is not actually a star. It is the Orion Nebula, and is the only nebula that can be observed in the night sky without using a telescope. Emilia Clarke, the actress who plays Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen in the series Game of Thrones, the first of her name, Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lady of the Seven Kingdoms, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, the Unburnt, Protector of the Realm, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, Lady of Dragonstone, Queen of Meereen, Yunkai, and Astapor, Daughter of the Dragon, Queen of Dragons, and whatever else is added, has heterochromia. Her eyes are different colors. The outer part of her iris is blue, and the inner part is light brown. Cats like to sleep on top of laptops when they are turned on, because their body temperature is about 102 degrees Fahrenheit higher than ours. They need the heat coming from those devices. When you tell someone about a goal or something you are planning to do, the brain releases chemical compounds that cause a satisfaction similar to what you feel when you actually achieve the goal or the activity. According to studies that have been done on the subject, this reduces motivation. Ferrari car engines are specifically manufactured to have musical harmony. The air intakes are shaped so the airflow produces the 3rd and 6th harmonic sounds. Octopuses create a kind of garden where they keep rocks, shells, and other materials they collect, and they hide there from predators. Octopus gardens are famous because of the Beatles song. Caterpillars have more muscles than humans. While we have 650, these insects have up to 4,000. They need them to move in that peculiar way. These muscles work in independent segments, allowing them to stretch, contract, and firmly grip surfaces. Tests have been carried out on Stradivarius violins that have been sold for as much as $20 million, and it was found that their sound does not have a large difference when compared with a professional violin built today. Their value actually comes from their status as collector's pieces. A Soviet miner named Alexei Stakhanov reportedly mined 227 tons of coal in a single shift and was recognized as the best worker of all time. He even appeared on the cover of Time magazine in 1935. In 1903, an article from the New York Times called "Flying Machines That Do Not Fly" claimed that humans would take between 1 and 10 million years to develop the technology needed to fly. Ironically, 10 weeks later, the Wright brothers achieved it, the first flights in the airplane they built. The famous painting The Scream by Edvard Munch does not actually represent a person screaming. According to what many media outlets reported recently, an inscription was found in Munch's diary that says that one day, during a walk with his friends, the sky suddenly turned red. As he had mentioned once, it is believed this painting was inspired by the effects of the eruption of the Krakatoa volcano in 1883, one of the worst in modern times, which affected the climate across the entire planet and caused extremely colored sunsets. The popular child actress from the first half of the 20th century, Shirley Temple, once went with her mother to a shopping center at Christmas when she was 6 years old, where Santa Claus approached her and asked for her autograph. According to an interview she gave in a newspaper in 1961, this made her start to have doubts about the existence of Santa Claus. But who knows? Maybe it really was the real one and he wanted her autograph. Painter Pablo Picasso once claimed the invention of disruptive camouflage, or dazzle camouflage, which was mainly used in World War I to confuse the position of ships. This was because he considered it very similar to cubism. Contrary to what people believe, most of the planet's oxygen comes from the ocean, 70%. Trees only contribute the remaining 30%. Caligula, one of the emperors of Rome, declared war on the sea, ordering his troops to collect shells and fish as a symbol of victory over Neptune, the king of the sea. This strange act was described by Roman historians such as Suetonius and is considered an example of his eccentric behavior. There is a tunnel in Switzerland where a road passes through that can also serve as a nuclear bomb shelter. Its construction was completed in 1976, and at that time, it was the largest shelter in the world. However, over the years, it stopped being its main function, and now, in addition to being a road, it can be visited as a museum. Sony executives wanted to name the movie The Karate Kid from 2010 Kung Fu Kid, since karate is not practiced in the film, and the term Kung Fu better represents the martial arts shown. But producer Jerry Weintraub insisted on keeping the original title from the first movie in 1984. NASA tried to create its own tortilla recipe that would last long enough to be included in a space mission, but it turned out Taco Bell tortillas lasted longer without going bad, so they used those from this restaurant instead. The double face illusion occurs when the eyes and mouth of a person are duplicated in an image, which becomes uncomfortable to look at because it creates confusion in the face detection ability of our brain, something reinforced over millions of years of evolution. However, it was discovered that rotating the image no longer produces the same discomfort. This is because when we see a face upside down, we do not detect the features well, even if there are obvious changes. The technology company Apple could not register the name iPhone in Brazil until 2013 because the company Gradiente had already registered the trademark in the South American country since 2000. To this day, both corporations can sell phones with the name iPhone. Neither has exclusivity. A zebra cannot sleep alone. It needs to be in a herd to feel safe and rest at night. While some sleep, others remain alert to detect predators. This surveillance system allows the group to rest without becoming completely vulnerable to possible attacks. The costume of the cowardly lion in the classic movie The Wizard of Oz was made from real lion hair. The makeup used by the first actor cast as the Tin Man, Buddy Ebsen, sent him to the hospital because it contained too much aluminum. He was later replaced by another actor. Apparently, making movies in that era was something very extreme. The ship Knock Nevis, previously known as the Seawise Giant, was the largest ship in the world. It measured approximately 1,503 feet long, and because of its size, it could not cross the Panama Canal or the English Channel. It was also considered the largest moving object ever made by humans. It was dismantled in 2009. Bees have hairs on their eyes. They use them to determine wind direction and measure the speed at which they fly. Experts used to claim that fingerprints existed to improve grip on different surfaces, but now it is believed that it is to make the skin more flexible or to improve the sense of touch. The Statue of Liberty was originally copper in color, but exposure to the elements gave it that characteristic green color. This layer is called patina and actually protects the metal from further corrosion over time. The only two countries in the world that do not have laws allowing any form of divorce are the Philippines and the Vatican. In all other countries recognized by the United Nations, it is allowed. The fastest commercial flight in the world takes place between two islands in Scotland. The total distance is less than 1 mile, and the plane remains in the air for only 47 seconds before landing. A former schoolteacher named Irv Gordon drove a Volvo P1800S that he bought in 1966 so much that he set the world record for mileage in a car when he passed 3,200,000 miles driven. African wild dogs, also called painted wolves, vote to decide if they want to go hunting or not, and to choose their leader. The most important members of the pack only need 3 votes, and the others need up to 10. The first restaurant that incorporated a production line to prepare food, managing to standardize preparation across different locations, was the White Castle chain that opened its doors in 1921, considered the first fast food restaurant. The inventor of automated teller machines, John Shepherd Barron, planned for PIN codes to be 6 digits or more, but his wife could only remember 4 digits. Therefore, he changed it, and that remains the standard today. In 2009, an art historian from Hungary discovered a famous lost painting while watching the movie Stuart Little. In the background of a scene, the set designer had bought the painting for just a few dollars in an antique shop. When its true value became known, it was sold at auction for $285,000. Laughing when we are tickled is actually a natural panic response of the body, similar to when we feel an insect crawling on our arm or leg. Quantum entanglement is a phenomenon in which two particles become connected in such a way that the state of one can instantly influence the state of the other, regardless of the distance separating them. It was once described by Albert Einstein as spooky action at a distance. It is fundamental for technologies under development, such as quantum computing and quantum cryptography. The warehouse scene in the movie Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark is actually just a painting created by artist Michael Pangrazio, which took him 3 months to complete. It was painted on glass, and the scenes were filmed through a hole made in the center. In the 1880s, the director of the Harvard Observatory was so frustrated with his team that he constantly said even his Scottish cleaning assistant could do the job better. So, one day, he fired them and hired her. Williamina Fleming led the team for decades, classified thousands of stars, and discovered the Horsehead Nebula. German and Russian troops had to call a temporary truce in the territory that is now Belarus during World War I because they were constantly attacked by wolves. The soldiers could not defend themselves from the fierce animals, even with their best weapons. On Lambay Island in Ireland, there are wallabies, a species of marsupial that can normally only be found in Australia. They are on this island because the zoo in Ireland released them due to animal overpopulation, and they managed to adapt to the local conditions. In the city of Amsterdam, there is a boat inhabited by rescued cats. It is a shelter with capacity for 50 cats. Over the years, it has become a tourist attraction that now draws more than 4,500 visitors each year, tourists who contribute to its preservation. Daniel Radcliffe has earned $94 million for his role as Harry Potter and says he has not spent any of it yet. Water has an expiration date not because it goes bad, but because over time the plastic used to make containers releases non-toxic chemicals that alter the taste. Factors such as heat and sun exposure also influence this process and accelerate it. When the game The Elder Scrolls Skyrim was released, the company Bethesda promised that anyone who had a baby on the launch day, November 11, 2011, and named the child Dovahkiin, the nickname of the main character meaning Dragonborn, would receive free video games from the company for life. And there was indeed a winner. Today, Dovahkiin is more than 12 years old, but the sequel to Skyrim has still not been released. To prevent civil wars, the Ottomans kept all successors to the throne confined in a palace called the Cage, where they had no contact with the outside world. The last Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed VI, lived in the cage from birth until he was 56 years old, without leaving even once. There are fuel efficiency competitions where students build vehicles capable of traveling thousands of miles on just 1 gallon of fuel. To achieve this, they use ultralight and aerodynamic designs, as well as optimized engines that consume minimal amounts of energy under controlled conditions. In the Vatican, there is the only ATM where you can perform transactions in the Latin language. It was installed to reflect the official language of the Catholic Church and shows options such as withdrawing money or checking balance in this historic language. Artificial banana flavoring is based on the variety called Gros Michel, which is different from the one found in supermarkets around the world. That is why its flavor is different. Gros Michel bananas were the most popular until the 1950s, but they stopped being used when a disease attacked the crops worldwide. Today, they can still be found in Thailand and nearby countries. In the city of Songdo, South Korea, garbage trucks do not exist. Instead, they have a collection system where trash enters from each home or building directly into underground pipes that lead to waste processing centers. Chai means tea. So when you say chai tea, you are actually saying tea tea. The word comes from languages such as Hindi and Urdu, and originally refers to a mixture of black tea with spices like cinnamon, ginger, and cardamom. The song Every Breath You Take by the group The Police is about someone obsessed with their ex-partner and how they spy on them. Sting, the vocalist and author of the song, has said several times that he is surprised by how many people think it is a love song. There is a place in the state of Wyoming, United States, that is part of the Great Continental Divide Basin where a stream of water splits into two. One flow leads to the Pacific Ocean, and the other leads to the Atlantic Ocean. It is the only hydrological phenomenon of this type in the world. In 1997, a supercomputer playing a chess match against professional chess player Garry Kasparov made an unusual move, which confused Kasparov and led him to lose the game. It was later discovered that the computer had made an error, or that it was simply a random move. The soccer ball that became the standard for many years, with black and white hexagons, was created by Adidas for the 1970 World Cup in Mexico. The first to be broadcast live worldwide, it had that shape so it could be easily recognized by people on televisions and so players could better see its movements. Male black widow spiders investigate and choose partners that are not hungry before reproducing to avoid being eaten, because sometimes that happens. In fact, that is why they are called black widows. They can even detect chemical signals that indicate whether the female has eaten recently. Salmon have their characteristic color because of the accumulation of pigments that come from their main food source, crustaceans. The same thing happens with flamingos and their pink plumage. Most of the cities with the largest populations in Canada are located at points that are farther south on the planet than the city of London, England. However, there are also settlements in Canada that are much farther north, within the Arctic Circle. The famous cocktail called Bloody Mary was invented in England. It was named after Mary I, daughter of Henry VIII, who had a reputation for being very, very cruel. Despite being apex predators at the top of the food chain, orcas do not see humans as prey, and are even gentle in some circumstances. There are no confirmed records of fatal attacks in the wild, and they tend to show curiosity instead of aggression toward people. In Florida, an underwater music festival is held every year that includes concerts broadcast through underwater speakers. The musicians are divers with real instruments and some imaginary ones, such as the fish flute. Its purpose is to promote the preservation of coral reefs. It is easier to be accepted into Harvard University than to be hired at the flagship Apple store in New York. Harvard has an acceptance rate of 7%. While only 2% of applicants are hired at that Apple store. A Caesar salad from McDonald's with chicken and dressing contains more calories, salt, and fat than a double Big Mac. This is mainly due to the creamy dressing and breaded chicken, which significantly increase the calorie content without seeming like a heavy meal. In 2020, Japanese researchers used a drone that released soap bubbles filled with pollen to pollinate pear trees, resulting in 95% of the flowers producing fruit. The same percentage achieved with hand pollination. Stephen King, one of the most famous horror novelists of all time, says he has to sleep with the lights on. He himself has said his imagination is so active that darkness can intensify his fears, even after creating so many terrifying stories. In the 1960s, 80% of canned pineapple came from Hawaii, but shortly afterward, it began to be produced more easily in other places. Currently, 75% of the world's pineapples come from Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines. The coldest place in the universe is in the Boomerang Nebula, 5,000 light-years from Earth, where the temperature reaches -457.6 degrees Fahrenheit, just 1 degree above absolute zero. Egypt was not independent or ruled by native Egyptians for more than 2,500 years. This ended in 1956 when it gained independence from Great Britain. In 2003, a New Zealand engineer named Bruce Simpson designed a cruise missile with only $5,000 using only parts he bought on the internet. Despite being legal, the government ended up canceling his project. In the movie Avengers: Infinity War, Tom Holland improvised his final words before what happened to him happened. Well, I think by now everyone knows what happened to Spider-Man when he turned into dust. The actor was only told to act as if he did not want to go, without specifying anything else. The Library of Alexandria, located in Egypt, had approximately 400,000 written scrolls, the equivalent of 100,000 books, making it the place that stored the largest amount of information in the world at the time. However, it was destroyed in the 3rd century after years of decline due to regional conflicts. Fireworks were invented many centuries ago in China, but the place where they were first used in different colors was Italy in 1830, when people realized they produced different colors depending on the compound they were mixed with, such as calcium, barium, or sodium. Documents destroyed by a paper shredder can be easily reassembled with a computer program. By scanning the cut strips, the program arranges them depending on their characteristics. A fan once created a replica of Thor's hammer that, with the help of powerful magnets, was impossible to lift unless it was him. The mechanism unlocked with a fingerprint reader that it had integrated. Take my money. In 1996, an attempt was made to create a self-sufficient ecosystem inside a greenhouse in the Sonoran Desert in Arizona to simulate a space colony. But the experiment resulted in an atmospheric disaster because they had problems generating oxygen, and some invasive species, such as red ants, spread and disrupted the habitat. Stan Lee's tendency to create characters whose names start with the same letter, such as Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Pepper Potts, and many others, was due to his poor memory for names. Making them this way helped him remember them more easily. 47 million years ago, the ancestors of the whales we know today had legs and did not live in the water. They were about the size of a large dog. There are more than 400 species of sharks on the planet, but only 3 of them are dangerous to humans, and their bites are usually out of curiosity, not to eat. That is why most people attacked by a shark survive. A Finnish tourist broke part of the ear of one of the Moai statues of Easter Island to take it home, but he was detained by authorities in 2008. Shortly afterward, the mayor of that place declared that this tourist deserved a punishment equal to what he did to the statue, but this was not carried out, and the punishment remained only a public apology and a fine of $17,000. Actor Viggo Mortensen bonded so well with the 2 horses he rode during the filming of The Lord of the Rings, where he played Aragorn, that when production ended, he bought them from their owner. The water pressure at the deepest point of the ocean is equivalent to having 100 adult elephants crushing you. Despite that, many creatures live near there. Some have developed gelatinous bodies without air cavities to withstand the extreme pressure without being crushed. Keanu Reeves was very good as an ice hockey goalie, and his dream was to compete professionally for Canada. But an injury ended his hopes, and he instead dedicated himself to being an actor and bassist. The rule of having only 1 child in China was a disaster. People preferred boys instead of girls, and now there is a very marked difference in the male population that exceeds the female population by almost 40 million. That means that in that age group from when that program existed, there are more men than women in China. Pool was so popular that it directly contributed to the invention of plastic, since ivory was too expensive and scarce to produce billiard balls, and demand kept increasing. The first synthetic plastic billiard balls made of Bakelite appeared in 1907 and quickly replaced ivory ones. The oceans make up 99% of the habitable space on planet Earth, which is why there is so much marine life. We still have a lot to discover. It is estimated that more than 80% remains unexplored, and every year new species are discovered in deep areas where sunlight never reaches. A couple in Sweden named their child 11116. Arguing that it was like an artistic creation. This resulted in a fine, obviously. The good thing is that they said it can also be pronounced as Alvin. The well-known restaurant Dunkin' Donuts, which recently removed the word donuts from its name to become simply Dunkin', reported in previous years that of all its sales, only 8% were from donuts. Most of its revenue comes from the sale of coffee and beverages, similar to Starbucks. Rainn Wilson, actor from the series The Office, initially auditioned for the role of Michael Scott, the office boss, but instead, he was given the role of Dwight, demoting him to assistant to the regional manager, just like in the series. People who like to drink coffee normally eat more than 140,000 insect fragments per year, since coffee beans are one of insects' favorite foods. But do not worry, almost everything we eat has tiny pieces of insects, and nothing happens to us. In the country of Burma, the Simpsons movie was banned, supposedly due to the excessive use of the colors yellow and red, which are believed to be associated with superstitions. Researchers identified a molecule in the center of the Milky Way that is also responsible for producing the flavor of raspberries, and also smells like rum, in case you were wondering what the center of the galaxy tastes and smells like. Tires have an expiration date that is generally 6 years after their manufacture. That means they deteriorate even if they are never used. To be sure of when they expire, they have a code marked on the inside. The last 4 digits indicate the week and the year in which they were manufactured. Haika crabs have markings on their backs that resemble the face of a samurai, according to Japanese art. But this was not created naturally. Fishermen who found one like this would return it to the sea because they believed it had the spirit of a fallen samurai. Years later, almost all of them have this shape because it favored their survival. The gym chain Planet Fitness has an average of 6,500 members per location, even though the capacity of each place is 300 people. There is no overcrowding because most people sign up but almost never go. In the 18th century in Europe, pineapples were imported in very small numbers or grown in special greenhouses, which made them very rare and expensive. So people used them as a symbol of wealth or even rented them to use as decoration and appear wealthy. That makes you appreciate them now that you can buy them at the grocery store or have them on your pizza. In 2012, a woman in France received her phone bill with an amount to pay of 11,721 trillion euros, the equivalent of 6,000 times the gross domestic product of France. When she called the company to clarify the situation, they told her that she had to pay it anyway. It was only after she insisted many times that they realized the error. Identical twins are indistinguishable in DNA tests because they share the same genetics. However, they can be distinguished by their fingerprints, which are different. Titanium dioxide is a key ingredient in sunscreen and white paint, but it can also be found in many bottled salad dressings. It is used as a coloring agent to give a brighter and more uniform tone, improving the product's appearance without altering its flavor. While Alexander the Great was conducting expeditions in the region of India, he encountered a tribe that had not yet discovered fire. It is not like they could look up a tutorial on YouTube. The world was disconnected in those times. If you place 100 million atoms in a row, they would reach a length equivalent to the width of your little finger. In the diameter of a human hair, 800,000 atoms can fit in a row. The mule is the most well-known hybrid animal. It is the mix of a female horse and a donkey. But there are also other hybrid animals, such as the liger, which is a lion and a tigress, the zebras, which is a zebra and a donkey, or the kama, which is the mix between a camel and a llama. And they look like mini camels. Pineapple is good for tenderizing meat because it contains an enzyme called bromelain that helps break down proteins. It is an acid that breaks down tissue, which is why sometimes if you eat a lot of pineapple, your tongue becomes irritated. Despite having a great sense of smell, being very long-lived, and possessing very complex social abilities, elephants cannot jump or run. Their great weight and the structure of their legs prevent them from lifting all 4 legs off the ground at the same time. Out of 2,600 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, only 20 are dedicated to fictional characters. Among them are Bugs Bunny, Godzilla, Kermit the Frog, Shrek, Mickey Mouse, The Simpsons, Snoopy, and the Chevrolet Suburban, which is the only object that has a star. The country where the most bottles are recycled is Finland. 90% of plastic bottles and cans are returned for recycling, and practically 100% of glass containers are recycled as well. Horses love the smell of lavender. It helps them relax. In case you ever need to calm a horse, now you know what to do. Pineapples are not actually a single fruit. They are the combination of many berries that fuse together during their growth. They are like a multiple fruit. Each visible section on the surface comes from a different flower that join together to form one structure. The country of Samoa once skipped an entire day on December 31st, 2011. They went from the 30th to January 1st. This happened because they officially changed time zones to the other side of the international dateline, which required them to move forward 24 hours. During the filming of the 1979 movie Apocalypse Now in the Philippines, local people observed how the actors brought surfboards to practice in the waves. This caused an increase in the popularity of surfing in the country, and many who were inspired that day later became professionals. Hydrangea flowers change color depending on the pH of the soil where they are planted. If it is 5.5 or lower, the flowers will be blue. If it is 6.5 or higher, they will be pink. And if it is between 5.5 and 6.5, they will be purple. A group of 15 monkeys escaped from a primate research center in Japan using trees as catapults to cross a 16-foot electrified fence. Shortly afterward, they were lured back by researchers who offered them peanuts. The name of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico comes from a misunderstanding between the Mayan inhabitants and the first Spanish conquerors in the region, because Yucatan sounds very similar to the Mayan equivalent of the phrase, "I do not understand your speech," or "I do not understand you," which is believed to be what they first heard when they asked the people what the region was called. The famous photo showing Nikola Tesla calmly reading while his Tesla coil releases electricity into the air was created using a double exposure technique. It would have been impossible to do it at the same time without being struck by the discharges. A false awakening is when you dream that you woke up but are actually still asleep. It can occur before or after a lucid dream, which is when you realize you are dreaming. It is more common during light sleep phases, when the brain is active and the body remains still. It can take up to 2 years for a pineapple plant to produce just one pineapple fruit. After that, the plant generates new side shoots that can produce more pineapples, although each cycle also requires a lot of time and proper conditions. Starting in the 1950s, brands began promoting products in cans that could be thrown away after use. Before this, bottles had to be returned to be reused. This disposable culture, which later introduced plastic packaging, has contributed to the global waste crisis of today. Steve Jobs once gave a Jaguar car to his assistant after she told him one day that she had arrived late because her car would not start. In 2011, Samoa eliminated an entire day from its calendar, jumping directly from December 29th to December 31st to align with its trading partners like Australia and New Zealand. Twin films are a phenomenon in which two very similar movies are released almost at the same time, such as The Prestige and The Illusionist, or A Bug's Life and Ants. The rock band Puddle of Mudd, which means puddle of mud, has that name because the first rehearsal room they had flooded one day and ended up full of muddy puddles. This happened from time to time because it was next to the Missouri River. The actor who originally played Dumbledore in the first and second Harry Potter films, Richard Harris, was not going to accept the role because his health was declining. But he accepted when his 11-year-old granddaughter told him she would never speak to him again if he did not take the role. In Japanese culture, the dream you have on the night of January 1st is believed to predict whether you will have good or bad fortune throughout the year. This dream is called Hatsuyume, and seeing Mount Fuji, a hawk, or an eggplant is considered especially lucky. There is a classic Japanese legend about a ghost that walks behind you at night when you are alone. It is called Beto Beto-san because its wooden sandals make sounds on the ground. But it is not dangerous. They simply say you should move aside and let it pass. After analyzing the oldest cave paintings found in caves, it was determined from the relative size of the fingers that at least 75% of the handprints were made by women. The first flexible hose ever created was made from ox intestines and was used by the Greeks to extinguish fires. They used the stomach to forcefully launch the water. In medieval times, in battles, it was common not to harm warriors who had good armor. They were simply captured and ransom was demanded, since only important warriors used expensive armor. Experts say the best way to maintain your phone battery so it lasts longer without deteriorating is to charge your phone when it is around 20% battery and not always charge it until it reaches 100%, but sometimes leave it at 80 or 90%. How lazy. Andorra declared war on Germany during the First World War, but did not send any soldiers because it did not have any. When the Treaty of Versailles was signed years later, Andorra was not included, so technically it remained at war with Germany until 1958 when they signed a symbolic peace document. Play-Doh modeling compound was invented in the 1930s to clean wallpaper from walls, but later, in 1956, they decided to sell it as a toy. Since then, more than 3 billion units have been sold, and it is one of the most recognized toys in the world. According to new evidence, the Titanic did not sink from hitting an iceberg. At least, that was not the only reason. It is believed there was a fire that could not be contained, which had already been burning for 3 weeks when the ship hit the iceberg. It was already very weakened. If it had been in good condition, it probably would not have sunk. The famous robot vacuum cleaners have trouble functioning properly on black or dark carpets, since their sensors interpret them as being at the edge of the room or on stairs. From 1928 to 1972, India won medals in field hockey at every edition of the Olympic Games: 7 gold, 1 silver, and 2 bronze. However, in 1976, grass fields were replaced with a synthetic version that is more expensive and difficult for athletes in that country to access, which immediately affected their performance. In the following 9 Olympic Games, they have won only 1 medal. The telephone invented in 1876 took 75 years to reach 50 million users. In comparison, the application Pokemon Go took only 19 days to reach that same number of 50 million users in 2016. Japan is infested with North American raccoons due to the popularity of the 1977 animated series Rascal the Raccoon. Thousands adopted these animals, but released them when they realized they were not good pets at all. During World War II, Allied soldiers managed to escape from an enemy prison thanks to the British government hiding escape tools, as well as a map inside a Monopoly game that was allowed to enter. Despite being far behind in the standings, Australian Stephen Bradbury won the gold medal in speed skating at the 2002 Olympic Games because all the competitors ahead of him fell in the final meters. Something similar happened in the 2 races before the final. In the scene from the movie Spider-Man, where Peter Parker saves Mary Jane from falling while also catching all the food she was carrying on a tray, there are no digital effects. Actor Tobey Maguire had to catch everything for real and succeeded after 156 takes. The tray and food had glue applied to make it easier. The blobfish looks like a normal fish underwater, but when taken out, it turns into that thing many might consider the ugliest animal. Since it lives in the depths, its body maintains its shape thanks to pressure. That is why, when taken out, it deflates. The Eiffel Tower was originally going to be in Barcelona, but it was rejected because the city government determined it was kind of ugly. So Gustave Eiffel took the design to Paris for the International Fair of 1889. In Paris, they did not like it much either, but it was still built. According to a study, people prefer interacting with robots that have female characteristics, such as the voice, compared to those with male characteristics. This was observed in hotels that use robotic staff. In a city in Florida, there are 2 houses that share the same backyard fence. However, the shortest driving route between them takes 20 minutes and is more than 4.3 miles long. This is due to the urban layout of the area. Mud skippers are a species that like to leave the water by moving with their fins. Despite being fish, they spend almost their entire lives out of the water. If this fish lives outside the water because it wanted to, you can also achieve your dreams. Roller coasters were invented in the 1880s, and their main purpose was to distract people so they would stay away from sin, according to them. The first one was in Coney Island, New York. All octopuses are venomous. They use their beak, the only hard part of their body, to inject saliva into their prey. There is even an octopus that lives near the Arctic whose venom can remain active at very low temperatures. For humans, only a few species represent a real danger. According to numerous studies, anxiety directly affects the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the same region that is key for decision-making ability. Shadows are darker on the moon because sunlight does not scatter as much as it does on Earth. This happens because the moon does not have an atmosphere to diffuse light, creating much stronger contrasts between illuminated and dark areas. In Africa lives slightly less than 15% of the entire world population, despite being such a large continent. However, it is the continent with the fastest population growth, and its population is estimated to double during this century. It is common for spiders to eat their own webs daily. This allows them to reuse the silk proteins to create more. Switzerland accidentally invaded Liechtenstein in 2007 when a group of 170 Swiss soldiers entered the territory after getting lost in the forest. But Switzerland apologized. The apology was accepted, and they all lived happily ever after. In 1984, New Zealand Prime Minister Robert Muldoon drank too much one night and, under the influence of alcohol, decided to call a general election, which he ended up losing. In India, dolphin shows are banned for being morally unacceptable. Dolphins are considered highly intelligent, and there have even been discussions about recognizing them as non-human persons with their own rights. The largest Buddha statue in the world measures 394 feet. It is located in Ibaraki Prefecture in Japan. It was built in 1995. It is called Ushiku Daibutsu, and inside it has several levels with rooms and observation decks accessible to the public. The countries with the most Subway restaurants are the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Brazil, Australia, and Mexico. Subway is the restaurant with the most franchises in the world, even more than McDonald's and Starbucks. Queen guitarist Brian May built his first electric guitar when he was 16 years old. The springs for the tremolo came from a motorcycle, the tuning pegs were knitting needles, and the wood came from a fireplace. In Thailand, monkeys have been used for more than 400 years to help harvest coconuts from palm trees. This is currently one of the reasons why the country is one of the largest producers. One of these macaques can harvest an average of 1,600 coconuts per day, while a human can harvest a maximum of 80. The composer of the Star Wars music, John Williams, has a son named Joseph Williams, who is the vocalist of the band Toto, the ones who sing Africa. The economy of the state of California in the United States is already the fifth largest in the world, surpassing countries such as India, the United Kingdom, and France. For their participation in the series Scream Queens, singers Ariana Grande and Lea Michele requested as a condition that they would not have to scream. In the end, they only recorded a couple of screams in an audio booth that were later added digitally to the scenes where they pretended to do it. The highest rank of a martial arts practitioner, the black belt, is black because as they advance in level, the belt becomes darker, and well, there is nothing darker than black. Originally, it represented experience and dedication, not the end of learning, since there are many advanced levels within the black belt itself. It is believed that the bacteria in our intestines may influence and manipulate our mind to crave certain foods, such as sweets. When chickens lay eggs, they allow them to cool until they lay them all. The cold delays embryo development. When they have laid the ones they wanted, they warm them by incubating them, and that way all the chicks hatch at the same time. Some birds have ultraviolet patterns in their feathers that are invisible to human eyes, but other birds can see them. The proboscis monkey lives on the island of Borneo and is one of the largest monkeys in Asia, but its most striking feature is its nose, which serves to attract a mate. Males with larger noses usually produce louder sounds, which impress females and scare away rivals. In Denmark, automobiles have an additional 180% tax when sold. This means they cost more than twice as much as in other countries. Additionally, obtaining a driver's license costs the equivalent of $2,000. Sea salps are creatures similar to jellyfish and form large groups. They are a feared plague of the oceans because they consume countless tons of plankton, forcing other animals like whales to look for food elsewhere. Paper toilet seat covers in public bathrooms, or placing toilet paper on the seat like some people do, actually does very little to prevent the transmission of bacteria, and no benefits have been found in using them. The national symbol of Ireland is a golden harp, whose first use dates back to the 13th century. It is the only country that has a musical instrument as its official symbol, which appears on coats of arms, coins, passports, and official documents. In 1859, there was a solar storm so intense that it overloaded telegraph networks and electrocuted some operators. Many telegraph devices also caught fire. Something similar could happen today with global communications if another solar event of this magnitude occurs. The white flags waved when someone surrenders are white because it was the color that was always available from clothing, and also because white represents passivity and calm. When King Conrad III invaded Weinsberg, the wives living in the castle negotiated a deal allowing them to leave with whatever they could carry before it was destroyed. So, the women left material possessions and carried their husbands instead. This made the king laugh. And, of course, a king must always keep his word. There are playlists on Spotify and other music services with special songs to perform CPR at the correct rhythm, between 100 and 120 compressions per minute. They include songs such as Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees and Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. It is recommended to have a premium subscription so the rhythm is not interrupted by advertisements in an emergency. A 1-gallon bottle of McDonald's barbecue sauce from the 1990s was sold at auction for $10,000 simply because it was used on special edition hamburgers associated with basketball player Michael Jordan. In the year 79, Mount Vesuvius erupted, destroying the city of Pompeii. The scientist, Pliny the Elder, approached to study the eruption, but he became so focused that he did not realize when the lava reached him and, well, that is where he stayed. There is a type of eruptions called Plinian eruptions that are named that way precisely because of him. Consuming large amounts of sugar does not cause hyperactivity in children as previously believed. The same behaviors have been observed in children who do not consume sugar. Many experts believe the effect is more related to the context, such as parties or games, than to sugar itself. Some voice actors in the video game Grand Theft Auto 5 were real convicts. One of them had even been released from prison the day before recording his lines. They were also given the opportunity to modify the script and offer suggestions to make the dialogue feel more authentic. Scientists in Berlin, Germany, had adults play the video game Super Mario 64 for half an hour a day for 1 month. At the end, the volunteers showed an increase in gray matter, demonstrating the relationship between video games and increased brain volume in certain regions. To reduce cleaning costs at the Amsterdam airport, fly images were installed in urinals so people would aim at them and urine would not fall on the floor or elsewhere. The idea was a success. Recently, the most accurate simulation of the human brain ever made was carried out, but just 1 second of brain activity took 40 minutes of calculations on one of the largest supercomputers in the world. The lamp that jumps on the letter I in the Pixar logo at the beginning of the movies comes from an animated short they created called Luxo Jr. from 1986, one of the first short films generated entirely by computer, and the first to be nominated for an Oscar. Since then, it has remained as the Pixar mascot. According to data from the World Health Organization, 5 million people are bitten by snakes each year worldwide, most in Africa and South Asia. If a certain gene is deleted in mice, they can become smarter because a mysterious region of their brain is unlocked. Scientists at Emory University named this gene Homer Simpson. When deactivated, the mice showed better memory and learning in laboratory tests. Britney Spears' first single, Baby One More Time, reached #1 on the charts in practically every country where these rankings exist. The original name of the restaurant Burger King was Insta Burger King when it was founded in 1953, inspired by a new cooking machine called the Instabroiler that had the capacity to cook 12 hamburger patties at the same time. In 2005, Bill Gates received an honorary title of the Order of the British Empire from Queen Elizabeth II. However, since he is not British, he cannot use the title Sir before his name. Photographer Robert Landsberg was documenting the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980, but suddenly realized he was not going to survive. So he placed his camera in its case, put it in his backpack, and protected it so it could be found later. Nike wanted to call its first shoe design Aztec, but Adidas threatened to sue them because they already had a line called Azteca Gold. Nike's founders decided to change the name to Cortez after Hernan Cortez, who, as we know, was the general who ordered the attack on the Aztecs. In 1982, a Boeing 747 airplane flew through ash expelled by a volcano in Indonesia. This caused all 4 engines of the aircraft to stop. Fortunately, after 15 minutes, the pilots managed to restart them, even though they had lost a great amount of altitude. The plane landed safely. Until the late 1960s, men with long hair were not allowed to enter Disneyland due to the strict dress code. When Sean Connery stopped being James Bond, the role was offered to actor Clint Eastwood, but he rejected it because he thought the character always had to be played by an English actor. In 2015, the so-called Grandfather Gang, a group of 6 men in which the oldest was 76 years old, committed the largest robbery in the history of England. They climbed through an elevator shaft and went through a concrete wall to steal more than £200 million in cash and jewelry. Absolute zero is the lowest temperature theoretically possible, reaching -459.67 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, it is believed that subatomic particles almost completely stop moving, which means it is not possible to go any lower. There is a selfie toaster. You simply send your photograph, and they send you a toaster that prints your face onto toasted bread. There is also a wide variety of toasters with different images to personalize your toast. The Cambodian language has 74 letters. It is the longest alphabet of all languages. It is called Khmer and uses different symbols for consonants and vowels, allowing it to represent many sounds with great precision and phonetic richness. The famous pizza chain Domino's Pizza offered a guarantee that if the order did not arrive within 30 minutes, it was free. This actually stopped applying in 1993 after there was an incident with a delivery driver and there were lawsuits and all that. But it was a great promotion, and the proof is that somehow we know it existed at some point. The sporting goods company Reebok offered basketball player LeBron James a contract worth $18 million to sponsor him when he was only 18 years old. But the offer was rejected because he believed that Nike and Adidas would come and offer him more money. Less than a year later, he accepted a $90 million offer from Nike. The birds capable of diving the deepest are emperor penguins. They can descend more than 1,640 feet into the ocean and remain there for 20 minutes. People who doubt themselves a lot tend to process too much information in the form of thoughts, which leads to procrastination and not putting effort into what they do. Restaurants almost never use dollar signs on their menus. That way people do not remember they are spending money, and it makes them spend more easily. Remember this the next time you go to a restaurant, and you will see it is true. Skyscrapers shrink over the years. This phenomenon is called elastic shortening and occurs due to the compression of concrete from the total weight of the building. This must be taken into account in all structural elements. For example, elevator rails must be made in segments with small separations. The movie Lawrence of Arabia does not contain any spoken dialogue by a woman. At 227 minutes, it is the longest film without a woman's voice. Former basketball player Shaquille O'Neal was one of the first to invest in companies like Google or Vitamin Water. But he did not want to invest in Starbucks because he does not drink coffee. Aspirin can save a person who is having a heart attack. For it to work, 3 or 4 tablets must be chewed during one of these episodes. Obviously, immediate medical attention is required, but that is a measure that has truly helped many people. The Slovak women's ice hockey team qualified for the 2010 Winter Olympic Games after defeating Bulgaria 82-0, a record number of goals. However, once they were at the games, they lost to the host team Canada 18-0. If you put an egg in cold water and it floats, it means it has gone bad and should not be consumed. Fresh eggs simply sink. This happens because over time, air enters the interior, increasing its buoyancy and signaling that it is no longer in its best condition. Breathing in the city of Mumbai for one day is equivalent to smoking 100 cigarettes. This is due to the high concentrations of pollutant particles in the air, caused by traffic, industry, and fuel burning. However, levels vary depending on the area and the season. The Olympic, the sister ship of the Titanic built by the same company, was the only passenger ship that managed to sink an enemy during the First World War. This happened when it collided with a German submarine in 1918. Despite the incident, this ocean liner continued operating until 1935. Just as leap years exist to balance calendars, there are also leap seconds that are added every certain number of years to adjust to the Earth's rotation speed. To replace this, it was proposed to add only 1 hour to the clock every 600 years, but it has not yet been approved. For several years, a Lego figure almost 6 feet tall has appeared on the shores of different places around the world. They were all signed by Ego Leonard, a name that forms the word Lego, an artist about whom practically nothing is known, only that he is Dutch. Fitting rooms in clothing stores are intentionally made with small doors or curtains that do not close well, so people decide quickly what to buy and do not spend much time inside. In 1997, actor Nicolas Cage received $20 million to play Superman in Tim Burton's movie Superman Lives. This was despite the fact that only costume tests were carried out because the film was canceled. Giraffes only sleep between 5 and 30 minutes every 24 hours. When they sleep, they rest their head on their own body. The YKK found on almost every zipper stands for Yoshida Kogyo Kabushiki Kaisha, the Japanese company responsible for making them. This company produces its own machines and materials, which allows them to control quality and manufacture millions of zippers every day with great precision. According to a study, thinking about your romantic partner can increase your level of motivation and energy during the day. This is related to the release of dopamine, a brain chemical associated with pleasure, reward, and motivation. For the world premiere of the Smurfs movie, all the houses in the town of Huescar in Andalusia, Spain, were painted blue. When the residents noticed an increase in tourist visits, they held a community vote and decided to keep the blue color and the Smurf sculptures. According to the dictionary of the Royal Spanish Academy, the word with the most meanings or definitions is pasar. In total, it has 64 meanings. An organization in Poland placed a SIM card in a GPS tracker to follow the migration pattern of white storks, but shortly afterward, they lost track of it and received a debt notice for $2,700. Apparently, someone in Sudan took the SIM card and made more than 20 hours of phone calls. In the country of Canada, there is a section of the criminal code that specifically protects oyster farmers against theft. This law considers oysters as special property, serving as a strong deterrent against stealing these marine creatures. Most LEGO sets include extra duplicate pieces that are intentionally chosen because statistically, they're the ones most frequently lost. There is a microscopic amount of gold in every gallon of seawater, which is very little, but if you extracted all the gold in the ocean, it would total 20 million tons of the golden metal. Apparently, the fortune has been right in front of us this whole time. However, it is almost impossible to extract that gold, so do not get too excited. The moon moves away from planet Earth 1.5 inches each year due to gravitational forces. Please do not go away, moon. We love you. Considering the number 0 as a number was an independent discovery made in at least 3 different regions of the world by ancient civilizations in Mesoamerica, in India, and in China. Other civilizations had the concept of 0, but they did not consider it a number. The first time a toilet flush was shown on a television series during family viewing hours was in 1971, in an episode of the series All in the Family. Before that, it was considered in poor taste to even show a bathroom. In the following decade, toilet humor would become popular. Scientists discovered a dwarf star that is 75 light-years away. This star has a surface temperature of around 207 degrees Fahrenheit, which is almost the same as a freshly made cup of coffee. The Academy Award for Best Actor that Heath Ledger won, thanks to his portrayal of the Joker, was the first time a superhero movie won one of these awards in one of the main categories. In 2014, the community of the cryptocurrency Dogecoin donated $30,000 to the Jamaican bobsleigh team so they could cover the costs of attending the Olympic Games. Sheep can remember and differentiate the characteristics of up to 50 faces of other sheep, as well as the face of their shepherd. Hafthor Bjornsson, the actor who plays the Mountain in Game of Thrones, broke a record that had not been surpassed for 1,000 years when he took 5 steps carrying a log weighing 1,433 pounds. We do not have muscles in our fingers. All the effort to move them is done by muscles located in the palms and forearms. A blue whale, the largest animal in the world, can consume the same amount of calories in a single bite that an average human eats in 180 days. According to a study from the University of Alaska, hamsters process alcohol much better than humans, being able to consume 7 times higher percentages than people without showing symptoms. This is because they are accustomed to eating fermented fruits that fall from trees and contain alcohol. Some people may notice that their shoe size increases as they get older because tendons and ligaments in the feet weaken, causing the feet to become larger. Flattening of the arch and loss of elasticity also contribute, making the foot lengthen and widen over time. Some caterpillars pretend to be bird droppings to go unnoticed by their predators. It is one of the many camouflage methods used by these species. The first Ferris wheel that was built was made in 1893 for the Chicago World's Fair. It had a height of approximately 246 feet and was specifically built to compete with the Eiffel Tower of Paris. After building it, its creator went bankrupt. In 1958, a Cessna aircraft was kept in flight for 2 months. This was achieved by refueling it using trucks that matched its speed while it flew at low altitude. 460 gallons of water are needed to produce the meat for a hamburger. This includes watering the cattle's food, as well as the water they drink and the water needed to process them. 90% of all apples consumed today came from just 2 trees in a remote forest in Kazakhstan, where there is an unimaginable variety of apples with different flavors. It is a shame that we only have access to very few. Lungfish can remain outside water for up to 4 years. This is because, in addition to gills, they possess organs similar to lungs that allow them to breathe air. This helps them survive in rivers that vary in water level. Despite being more than twice as far from the Sun as Mercury, Venus is the planet in the solar system with the highest surface temperature, 869 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to melt aluminum. This is due to the high concentration of carbon dioxide in its atmosphere, which prevents heat from escaping, known as the greenhouse effect. A significant percentage of bottled water simply comes from tap water in the locations where it is sold, with minor treatment. It usually goes through processes such as filtration, purification, or added minerals to improve taste, but its origin may be the same as regular drinking water. The song Put the Lime in the Coconut by Harry Nilsson uses only one chord. It is the only song with no chord changes that has been on the Billboard Top 100 list. An English soldier named Hugh Trenchard was left paralyzed after a battle in the Second Boer War in 1899. During his operation in Switzerland, he became fond of bobsledding, and soon afterward he had an accident. Only instead of worsening his condition, it made him regain movement in his legs, allowing him to walk again and later return to the war. Only a few similar cases have happened in all of history. In the 1930s, many nearly perfectly carved stone spheres were discovered in Costa Rica. The largest weighs 16 tons, and no one knew where they came from or who made them. However, later studies determined they may have been sculpted by the pre-Columbian Diquis culture. There is a cat cafe in Brooklyn, New York, where there are rats that take care of smaller cats or those that need company. Traditionally, these two species are believed to be arch enemies, but apparently that is not the case. In 1994, the grunge band Pearl Jam canceled the tour after seeing the fee that the ticket company was charging their fans. They preferred to improvise concerts in empty lots or rural areas where they sold their tickets independently. King Eric VII of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, who ruled in the 15th century, became a pirate after he was exiled from the throne. Sometime later, he led a pirate attack directed at his enemies. In 1961, an engineer developed a flying submarine. When it was completed, he demonstrated it in 1964, where it managed to submerge to a depth of 6 feet and 7 inches, and then fly to an altitude of 33 feet. Even so, they did not become popular. The loudest airplane ever created, the XF-84H Thunderscreech, produced continuous sonic blasts that could even be seen. Everyone nearby, even with hearing protection, began to experience nausea and headaches. One person even had to be hospitalized because of it. A homeless man named Leo Grand was offered the choice of $100 in cash or a programming lesson by a stranger. He chose the programming lesson and shortly afterward launched his own application. Coca-Cola launched a soda called OK Soda in 1993 to have 2 products with the most recognized words in the world. However, it was not successful. But the word OK continues to be the most recognized word in the world, and in second place is Coca-Cola or Coke. In 2002, a soccer team in Madagascar lost 149-0. All were own goals. They did this as a protest against a controversial refereeing decision in the previous match. Sheep can distinguish between happy faces and sad faces and prefer to approach people who are happy. Studies showed that they can even recognize human faces in photographs and remember them for years, indicating that their memory and social perception are more advanced than they seem. During the 18th and 19th centuries, squirrels were some of the most popular pets, but because of their low capacity to be trained due to their wild nature, they were soon seen as a pest. It is estimated that the rise in ghost stories during the Victorian era is due to the introduction of gas lamps, which release carbon monoxide. If inhaled in excess, it can cause hallucinations in people. The first printing press was invented in 1440. At that time, the Roman Empire still existed. It would not be dissolved until 1453, which was the year the Ottoman Empire conquered the city of Constantinople. The first object we sent into space, almost accidentally, was an iron disc weighing 4,409 pounds that was placed to cover a hole where a nuclear bomb test was being conducted in the United States in 1955. Rapper Nelly has paid the college education of 2 students each year for 10 years. Nut theft is an increasingly large problem in different parts of the world. Organized and sophisticated operations are carried out to transport them illegally. This is because they are difficult to trace, and a trailer container full of them can be worth up to $500,000. Actress Emily Blunt rejected the role of Black Widow in Iron Man 2, and consequently, in all the other movies where this heroine appears, because she preferred to star in Gulliver's Travels. I think that was not a very good choice. The Army of Paraguay has naval forces, despite not having direct access to the sea. They are responsible for defending the country's water resources. It is estimated that in 1492, the year Europeans began traveling to the Americas, the population of the American continent was already approximately 60 million people, nearly the same as in Europe at that time, which was 70 million. To combat a rat infestation in Hawaii, hundreds of mongooses were brought in. But they overlooked a small detail. Rats are nocturnal, and mongooses prefer the daytime. So now Hawaii has two infestations. Tyrannosaurus rex lived in a time closer to humans than to stegosaurs, in a world where grass already existed. One of the founders of Spotify, Daniel Ek, was during 2006 the manager of uTorrent, a peer-to-peer file downloading software mainly used to download pirated content. The video game company TinyBuild released the game No Time to Explain as a measure against piracy. Instead of blocking the game or adding restrictions, they themselves released a torrent version for free, with the difference that all the characters were dressed as pirates. Contrary to what people think, freezing fruits does not remove nutrients. It can even retain vitamin E and minerals like calcium and iron. This happens because they are frozen shortly after being harvested, slowing deterioration. In some cases, they can preserve more nutrients than fresh fruits stored for several days. A man named Adam Armstrong changed his name to Adam West only so it would match the name that was incorrectly printed on an airline ticket he had purchased. It turned out it was cheaper to change his name than to pay the ticket cancellation fee. It was discovered that in places where lightning strikes the ground, more mushrooms tend to grow, something that was thought to be a myth but was confirmed. It is believed that electricity activates an enzyme that promotes their growth. Actor Mark Hamill improvised his line where he mentions that he cannot see well with the stormtrooper uniform in Star Wars. In fact, it was a real complaint during production. However, they liked it and kept it in the movie. Roosevelt Island in New York does not require garbage trucks or collectors. Instead, they have an underground garbage suction system of high-speed pneumatic tubes that lead to a dump where it is finally collected. Stegosaurs lived on planet Earth 140 million years ago. That is, before grass existed, which evolved into what we know today about 80 million years ago. Actress Kate Winslet broke the record for the longest time filming underwater while making a scene for Avatar 2. Winslet held her breath for more than 7 minutes, surpassing the 6 minutes that Tom Cruise had reached while filming the movie Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. Dactyliotum bicolor, also known as the rainbow grasshopper, has unusual colors compared to normal green grasshoppers. It lives in North America, and its colors are believed to be due to aposematism, which refers to animals having unusual colors to deter predators. While the summit of Everest is considered the highest point on the planet, the tallest mountain is actually Mauna Kea in Hawaii. This volcano exceeds 32,808 feet in height, but part of those feet are underwater, which is why they do not count. In Japan, they had problems with crow nests in electrical infrastructure, so they destroyed them, which caused the local crow population to build more than twice as many new nests as they needed in case they were destroyed again. In the 1940s, a marshal of the Soviet Union asked for transparent Coca-Cola to be made so he could drink it in public and make it look like he was drinking vodka. Coca-Cola was seen in the Soviet Union as a symbol of American imperialism. The eyes of octopuses are different from those of vertebrate animals because, although they are similar, they actually evolved independently. The difference is that they have photoreceptor cells oriented toward the light, and their visual nerves pass behind the retina. Therefore, they do not have a blind spot. There are butterflies in Central and South America that are so fast they can beat a horse in a race. The fastest ones have short wings and are gray or brown. They can easily be mistaken for a moth. One of Max Planck's professors told him not to pursue physics because almost everything had already been discovered, but he did it anyway. Later, he won a Nobel Prize for proposing quantum theory. The humanoid robot Sophia, developed in Hong Kong, is the first robot to receive citizenship from a country. It was in Saudi Arabia that this document was granted to her as recognition. NASA has a service where you can register your phone number and receive an alert every time the International Space Station passes over your location. Many people instinctively stand up and walk or move when they are talking on the phone. This happens because, while speaking, the brain seeks visual feedback, since only the voice is heard, and it begins to replace emotional responses with movements. Armpit sweat smells worse than sweat from other parts of the body because the glands there release an oily substance that bacteria love. The smell is actually the bacteria eating that substance. When Eminem's daughter Haley was crowned homecoming queen at her school stadium, the rapper hid in an empty room and watched everything through a window because he did not want to take attention away from her. In the 1980s, Iraq was developing what would have been the largest artillery weapon in the world, capable of launching satellites into orbit and striking any point on the planet. But the project was canceled due to the First Gulf War. Studies indicated that when dogs see humans, their brain's pleasure center shows activity in the exact same way ours does when we see dogs. A woman in the United States bought a scratch-off lottery ticket just to prove to her husband that you can never win those games, and she won $1 million. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Temple of Artemis, was deliberately burned by a pyromaniac who wanted to become famous. After the Greeks captured and executed him, they made a law stating that anyone who mentioned his name would face the death penalty. There was a species of bear native to North Africa called the Atlas bear, which suffered a population decline due to the Roman Empire's demand for animals for gladiator events. It finally went extinct in the 1870s due to hunting. Although it is not their favorite food, polar bears sometimes also eat bird eggs, small mammals, and even vegetation. This usually happens when sea ice decreases and they have more difficulty hunting seals, their main source of energy and fat. Supermarket customers tend to buy more French wine when French music is playing, and more German wine when German music is playing, according to a study. There is a frog that defends itself by headbutting, except its head has spines that secrete venom. Humans have existed for approximately 200,000 years. However, the oldest written or illustrated history known is only 6,000 years old. This means we do not have a concise way of knowing what happened during 97% of our history. Have you ever noticed how twins often speak to each other using words or gestures that only they understand? Usually, when they are children or babies, this form of communication is called cryptophagia. If you earn more than $60,000 per year, congratulations! You are among the richest 1% of people in the world. Since 2012, the United States Air Force has trained more drone pilots than fighter jet pilots and other manned aircraft pilots. In the movie Ratatouille, critic Anton Ego's typewriter is shaped like a skull, in reference to how his reviews destroy restaurants. Many zoos keep feathers that fall from exotic birds to give them to Native Americans so they can make their ceremonial clothing. Most international internet communications travel through submarine cables that cross the oceans. They are very thick cables placed by special ships and remain on the ocean floor. They have protection so marine creatures do not eat them. The galaxy M100 is so far away from us and its light takes so long to arrive that if advanced beings exist there and could observe us with an extremely powerful telescope, they would see the time when the dinosaurs were becoming extinct. Water pressure in New York only reaches the 6th floor. Taller buildings need a system installed on the roof to bring water to the upper floors. There are only 2 companies in the city dedicated to that. The complete performance of the band Creedence at the Woodstock Festival in 1969 was not released until 2019, 5 decades later. The reason was that vocalist John Fogerty did not consider it very important. April 18, 1930 was such a boring day that at 6:30 in the evening, a BBC announcer simply announced that there was no news for that day, and then only played piano pieces and classical music. All our radio and television signals become indistinguishable after traveling just a few light years into space from Earth due to the inverse square law. This means it is very unlikely that aliens are watching television broadcasts from decades ago if they are very far away. Polar bears rub their noses together to communicate, especially if they are asking for a favor. They see it as friendly behavior. According to studies, people decide if you are trustworthy or intelligent, or adventurous, extroverted, or any other trait just 3 seconds after meeting you. The Whopper hamburger from Burger King was created in 1957, 11 years before McDonald's Big Mac, which debuted in 1968. Front-loading washing machines use between 40 and 75% less water and between 30 and 85% less electricity than traditional washing machines that have the door on the top. Sharks, despite being apex predators, are important for ecosystem balance. If they stopped existing, it would cause a chain reaction that would impact even algae and coral. The Japanese word kuchisabishi, which literally means lonely mouth, refers to when you are not hungry but still eat simply because your mouth feels lonely. In Iron Man 3, there is a brief scene where Tony Stark meets Dr. Wu in 1999. But in the Chinese version of the movie, there is an extra full scene where more is explained about the character with a cameo by a famous actor in that country. The moon and the sun appear the same size in the sky because the sun is 400 times larger than the moon. but it is orbiting at a distance 400 times farther away. It is a great coincidence. If those numbers were different, total eclipses would not exist, for example. The planet Neptune has the strongest winds in the solar system. It has been discovered that gusts can reach up to 1,305 miles per hour. Actress Emma Watson was originally going to use fake tooth prosthetics to portray Hermione in the Harry Potter films, similar to how the character is described in the books. But it was discarded after filming one scene because it prevented her from speaking properly. The famous Star Wars character Boba Fett originally appeared in an animated Christmas special, as well as in a parade 2 years before his appearance in The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. After being harvested, pineapples stop ripening. They remain exactly as they were at the moment they were picked, so it does not make sense to store them for a few days hoping they will become sweeter like other fruits. You have to know how to choose your pineapples. The first tests of penicillin were carried out on mice. If they had been conducted on other animals, such as guinea pigs, the story would have been different because they are allergic to it. Sweden and Finland are the only countries that have won at least one medal in every Olympic Games held since 1908. The Sears store once included complete houses in its catalog in the United States that arrived by train unassembled, and the buyer had to assemble them. Some still exist. The video game company Bethesda was offered to make an official Game of Thrones game in 2011, but they rejected it because they were making Skyrim. There is a lake in Virginia, United States, called Mount Storm that serves as a cooling reservoir for a coal power plant. This keeps its temperature always high, making it ideal for swimming even on days when the temperature is below zero. Highway 1 in Australia is the longest continuous highway in the world at 9,010 miles. It connects all the state capitals of the country. In Hong Kong, McDonald's has practical packages to organize your wedding in one of its restaurants. Prices range from $350 to $1,300. Bug-killing machines can release dust containing microscopic insect parts more than 6 feet and 7 inches away, contaminating everything nearby with bacteria and viruses from these animals. Hawaiian pizza was invented in Canada in 1962, not in Hawaii. A man named Sam Panopoulos was responsible for bringing us this great invention. The wheel was invented around 5,500 years ago in the region of Sumer, but what motivated people to perfect it was not transportation. What they wanted to create was a potter's wheel to make ceramic vessels. In Garzón Lagoon on the southern coast of Uruguay, there is the only circular bridge in the world. It was built to attract more people to the area, but mainly to make drivers slow down when crossing it. The first pirate who raised the famous pirate flag with the skull and crossbones at the top of his ship's mast was the Frenchman Emmanuel Wynne in the year 1700. The voice of Sally, Charlie Brown's sister, was done by Fergie. Famous for having been in the group Black Eyed Peas, Fergie did many voice acting performances before becoming known for her music. The movie Black Widow caused a 163% increase in searches for red hair dye. Sales also increased during a short period of time. A fisherman in the Philippines found a 75-pound pearl with an estimated value of $100 million. But since he did not know its value, the fisherman kept it under his bed for 10 years as a good luck charm. A study was conducted to determine how many bacteria accumulate on a pair of jeans that are not washed. For this, a subject wore them without washing them for 15 weeks, and researchers discovered that after 2 weeks, the amount of bacteria that could become harmful to health did not increase further. The director of Levi's himself has recommended not washing jeans too frequently. Only one person has ever been recorded as being struck by a meteorite. It was American Anne Hodges in November 1954. She was taking a nap when suddenly a rock the size of a baseball crashed through her roof, bounced off a radio, and hit her thigh, leaving a small bruise. A species of snail discovered in Australia in 2009 was named Crikey steveirwini in honor of crocodile hunter Steve Irwin because of its brown color similar to what he always wore. Potatoes contain almost all the nutrients humans need to survive. To prove this, the director of the Washington Potato Commission ate only these tubers for 60 days, and nothing happened to him. In the original Scooby-Doo series, there were so many running chase scenes because it was an easy and quick way to fill time. These scenes are easy to animate because the background repeats, and the running frames of the characters were already made. NASA denied the rumor that 50% of its employees were dyslexic, and that they were chosen especially for their problem-solving abilities. The most common state of matter in the universe is plasma. Although it is rare on planet Earth, The sun, the stars, and almost all interstellar matter exist in this state. Eggplants contain nicotine, but they have so little that you would have to eat about 22 pounds to get the same effect as one cigarette. Either way, it is a good excuse not to eat eggplants. It is estimated that most elevator door close buttons are not connected and do not perform any action when pressed. The doors close automatically with a timer. If Bill Gates spent $1 million every day, it would take him more than 200 years to run out of money. Sea otters have folds in their skin that function as pockets. They use them to store their favorite rocks, which they use to open oysters and other mollusks. The voice actor of Fred in the original 1969 series Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, Frank Welker, still provides his voice in newer adaptations of the cartoon. He also now voices Scooby. If a jellyfish stays in the sun for a while without contact with water, it evaporates. This happens because its body is composed of more than 95% water, so it quickly loses its shape as it dehydrates. There is a variant of chess called singularity chess that is played on a distorted board. Because of this, the pieces can make curved movements, attack the same square in different ways, and bishops change color every time they pass through the center of the board. While movies have, on average, 1,250 different shots, the animated movie Akira contains nearly double, 2,212. Additionally, the total number of frames is also double or triple that of typical animated films, with a total of 160,000 individual images. There is no Nobel Prize in mathematics because Alfred Nobel's wife cheated on him with a mathematician. When he established the prizes, he did not include the mathematics Nobel as a way to release his frustration. When the remake of the movie It was released in 2017, the clown industry suffered a major economic blow. Thousands of shows scheduled in schools and children's parties were canceled, and the number of new performances decreased. In gazelle herds, there are some responsible for detecting enemies. When they see one approaching, they begin jumping in place. This alerts all the others, and they flee. The first written reference to the tooth fairy is from 1927, even though teeth have existed for millions of years. A man named Tony Sikoria was struck by lightning in 1994 and was saved by a nurse passing by. After recovering, he realized he could hear music constantly in his head, which motivated him to buy a piano and become a classical pianist. He even created a piece called Thunder Sonata. In the late 1980s, during a visit to the zoo, boxer Mike Tyson offered $10,000 to the staff to open the gorilla cage so he could punch a gorilla that was bullying the other primates. But the offer was rejected. The Swedish tried to have a cavalry made entirely of moose in the 18th century, but apparently it did not work. Moose were difficult to domesticate, were easily frightened by battle noise, and were impractical for organized combat. During the days when Rihanna's song Umbrella was at #1 on the music charts, unusual storms and floods were recorded in the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Romania, to the point that British tabloids began using the term Rihanna curse. Helicopters are designed so that if the engine shuts down, they can still be controlled and landed safely instead of simply falling. This system is called auto-rotation. It is estimated that approximately 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives, which consists of believing they do not deserve their success and worrying about being exposed as a fraud. Many species of trees are connected through an underground network of fungi that provides them with nutrients, helping them share resources with one another. Scientists call this the Wood Wide Web, something like a wooden internet. Black swans were only a metaphor used in Europe. They were believed not to exist until much later when they were discovered in Australia. Two of the largest rivers in the world, the Amazon River and the Negro River, cross into a single body of water. However, they do not mix because they have different density, temperature, and speed, and each continues on its own path. 50% of panda births result in twins, but panda mothers almost always abandon one. So zoo staff have to switch them every certain number of hours so the mother unknowingly cares for both. The Washington, D.C. police in the United States once created a fake hip-hop recording studio to attract criminals and obtain evidence of their activities. They managed to make 70 arrests and confiscated 160 weapons. They had to shut it down when they found out a gang was planning to break in and rob it. A rock carved 3,500 years ago by a student in ancient Babylon was discovered in which he had written several humorous riddles about beer, pregnancies, and what is considered the first recorded insult about someone's mother in all of history. Carbonated drinks have more bubbles when they come in cans than when they are in plastic bottles. This is because carbon dioxide cannot escape from a sealed aluminum can, unlike plastic bottles. That is why most people say those drinks taste better in cans or even glass than in plastic. Ants know that they are themselves. In an experiment, researchers painted blue dots on them and placed them in front of a mirror. Most began trying to remove the blue dot. This makes them one of the few animals that can recognize themselves in a mirror. There is a prison in Finland where the only security measure preventing inmates from escaping is a yellow wooden fence. It is part of a concept of open prisons used in that country. Only female mosquitoes bite animals and humans. Males feed only on flower nectar. Tigers love humans, but to harm them. Of the big cats, they're the ones that have attacked people the most, even more than lions. The surface water of the Atlantic Ocean is significantly saltier than that of the Pacific Ocean. This is due to ocean currents and mountain formations that retain fresher Pacific water and prevent its movement. In Yellowstone National Park in the United States, there is an area that is completely uninhabited. If someone broke the law in that place, there would be no jury because nobody lives there. So a trial would be impossible, and they would get away with it. It is impossible to legally obtain episodes 200 and 201 of the series South Park, as they were originally made, because they include the appearance of Muhammad, the founder of Islam. On streaming platforms where these episodes are available, they simply place a box with the word censored. Vanguard 1 is the oldest satellite still orbiting Earth. It was launched on March 17, 1958. It has a diameter of 6.3 inches and weighs less than 3.3 pounds. Because of this, it was nicknamed the Grapefruit Satellite. In Singapore, senior citizens can scan their identification card at traffic light posts to have more time to cross the street. A space enthusiast managed to capture a photo of the International Space Station with a regular telescope, in which even an astronaut performing maintenance outside the station is visible. Pizza Hut released a limited edition perfume in Canada in 2012. According to a press release, the perfume smelled like freshly baked dough. Maybe you like pizza a lot, but this is already too much. Jamie Heineman, known for being a special effects expert and host of the program Mythbusters, previously specialized in things such as diving, Russian literature, and gastronomy. He is also a survival expert, owned a pet store, and trained animals. Walt Disney was inspired by Joseph P. Kennedy, father of United States President John F. Kennedy, to create his character Scrooge McDuck. Apparently, he was equally greedy and only wanted to be a millionaire. Bob Metcalfe, the inventor of the internet, predicted in an article in 1995 that the internet would suffer a catastrophic collapse in 1996, and wrote that he was so sure he would eat his words if it did not come true. In 1997, at a conference, he put his article in a blender and ate it in front of everyone attending. That is truly keeping your word. Different companies are developing contact lenses that replace the natural lens of the eye with one that has enhanced vision, allowing you to read the hands of a wristwatch from 33 feet away. They are expected to be available to everyone by the middle of this decade. While cleaning an exhibit in 1959, a group of cleaning staff thought they could create an artwork just as good as the ones they were cleaning. So they placed their artwork without anyone noticing, which earned them a prize. In France, it is illegal for restaurants to offer unlimited refills of sugary drinks, the famous refill. This measure was implemented to reduce excessive sugar consumption and combat health problems such as obesity and diabetes. Sony sold Walkman music players that came inside water bottles and could be purchased from vending machines. This was done to demonstrate that they were truly waterproof. The Krusty Krab looks like a treasure chest, but it is actually shaped like a crab trap. Bill Gates has donated more than $59 billion to different causes through his foundation, making him one of the most philanthropic people in all of history. The small plastic object placed in the center of pizzas to prevent them from being crushed by the box is called a pizza saver and was invented in 1974. In 2020, Pizza Hut partnered with IKEA to launch a full-size table inspired by a pizza saver. Plants produce caffeine as a way to defend themselves against pests. In addition, it is also a toxic substance for birds, dogs, and cats. It also causes problems for mollusks, some insects, and spiders, but we like it very much. In an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation that aired in 1989, Captain Picard mentions that Fermat's last theorem would remain unsolved for 700 more years. But apparently, he was wrong, because that theorem was solved in 1995. Durian, a fruit with a strong odor similar to natural gas, provides almost instant energy due to the amount of carbohydrates it contains. It also has a high potassium content. Because of its smell, it is banned in some hotels and airlines. There is a cup that can trick your brain while drinking water, making you think it has fruity flavors so that you drink more plain water. It achieves this through its aroma. The senses of smell and taste are directly related and can influence each other. Tarsiers are primates that have eyes so large they are the same size as their brain. They live clinging to trees, and that stare surely helps intimidate their prey. The largest waterfall in the world is underwater. It is located in the Denmark Strait, where cold Nordic seawater that is denser flows downward for more than 1 mile. Reaching the center of the Milky Way would take about 25,000 years traveling at the speed of light. Our solar system is located in one of the spiral arms, which means the center is quite far away. According to specialized facial recognition software designed to detect emotions, the Mona Lisa has an expression that is 83% happy, 9% disgusted, 6% fearful, and 2% angry. In the city of Magnitogorsk, Russia, there is a mountain made almost entirely of iron. It is considered a geological anomaly, and for this reason, iron mining is the main activity in the area. When dogs hear a human crying, they interpret it the same way as when they hear another dog howling. This can make them approach, become restless, or try to comfort, since they perceive the sound as a signal of emotional distress. The 7 wonders of the ancient world only existed at the same time for a period of about 60 years, and today only the Great Pyramid of Egypt remains. All the others were destroyed. According to DNA tests that have been conducted, 1 out of every 3 fish sold in supermarkets and served in restaurants is mislabeled and is a different species than indicated. The youngest son of Rolling Stones singer Mick Jagger is younger than the vocalist's great-granddaughter. That means she is 2 years older than her great-uncle. The part of flamingos' legs that bends is not their knees, it is actually their ankles. Their entire leg is like a giant foot, and their real knees are higher up, covered by feathers. Sardines are not a single species of fish. It is a term used to describe different species of the clupid family, or small fish, that gather in groups of thousands and are frightened by sharks. In 1991, the famous red and yellow Little Tikes toy car was the best-selling American-made vehicle, surpassing real cars from Ford and Chevrolet. Kate Winslet says she keeps her Oscar in the bathroom so that people who visit her can go rehearse acceptance speeches while looking in the mirror without feeling embarrassed. When the almost creator of the Internet, of the World Wide Web protocol, was interviewed, he admitted he only regretted one thing: adding the / after the HTTP:. You know, the part repeated in every web address. Although it was the programming standard, it did not really make sense to use it. In 2013, a flight traveling from Los Angeles to New York had to divert to another city to remove a passenger. It was a woman who would not stop singing the Whitney Houston song, "I Will Always Love You," and refused to cooperate with the flight attendants. According to a study, children who are very picky eaters, meaning they do not like eating many foods, tend to develop more anxiety, depression, and obsessive-compulsive disorder when they are adults. The country of Belize, until the 19th century, was called British Honduras. Currently, its population is approximately 420,000 inhabitants. Spam emails receive 1 response for every 12.5 million messages sent. However, it seems to work well enough for scammers because the practice continues to exist. Some people are born with fused fingers. This condition is called syndactyly. It occurs during fetal development, when the fingers do not fully separate, and in many cases, it can be corrected through surgery without affecting the normal function of the hand or foot. Lady Gaga said in 2009 that she does not wear pants and wears little clothing in her shows because her grandmother is almost blind and told her she could better see bright areas like her face and skin. The original PlayStation 1 controller was 10% larger in the United States compared to those in Japan. They did it that way because, according to them, Americans' hands are larger on average. Jim Carrey had torture endurance training from the Central Intelligence Agency to be able to endure the makeup process every time he had to film scenes during the filming of the movie The Grinch. All Rolls-Royce automobiles manufactured in the last 20 years have a line painted by hand by the artist Mark Court, who does his work without the help of any machine. More complex custom designs can also be ordered. Although it is still a stereotype that India has thousands of snake charmers on the streets, in reality, it has been illegal in that country for more than 25 years in order to protect animals, and those who practiced it now work in other occupations. This is a real photo of Titanic survivors who boarded the collapsible boat moments before being rescued by the ship Carpathia the next day after the sinking. The Carpathia sank 6 years later. Approximately 20% of mammals can fly, but this high number is due to there being more than 1,200 species of bats, not because there is a great variety of flying mammals other than bats. In the 1930s, a solution was proposed to make parking easier. Cars would have a fifth wheel that would extend from the rear so they could move sideways. Although it was not a bad idea, vehicle manufacturers rejected it. The characteristic British accent began developing among the upper class in London in the mid-18th century. Before that, most people in the United Kingdom spoke in a way similar to modern American English. While actress Jennifer Connelly was filming the 1985 movie Phenomena, a chimpanzee bit her and took off a piece of her finger. Fortunately, she was taken to the emergency room immediately, and it was reattached. Sloths can hold their breath for a long time, up to 40 minutes, while dolphins that live in the water their entire lives have to surface to breathe every 10 minutes. Chamorro is a language spoken in Guam and in the Northern Mariana Islands. Currently, fewer than 100,000 people use it, and this number has been declining since the United States took control of the island of Guam after the Second World War and forced schools to use English. Musician Post Malone got his stage name by putting his real name, Austin Post, into an online rapper name generator. Similarly, Donald Glover got his stage name, Childish Gambino, using another internet name generator. There is no single reason why the traditional color of taxis is yellow. Apparently, the engineer who developed a 15-horsepower taxi in 1907 painted it yellow because his wife suggested it. But around the world, there are taxis of all colors. Nikola Tesla once paid a hotel bill he owed with a box that, according to him, contained a functional model of his death ray, warning employees not to open it because of how dangerous it would be. When they discovered the box years later and opened it, they found only old electrical parts that did not work. A super-habitable planet is a hypothetical planet that has conditions more suitable for the appearance and evolution of life than Earth itself. So far, 24 planets that could be super-habitable have been identified, but more studies are needed to confirm this. The Bank of Oklahoma building is a half-scale replica of the World Trade Center Twin Towers. It was designed by the same architect and completed 3 years after the towers. At Starbucks, you can order your drink at kids temperature or warm. That way, you do not have to wait to start drinking it, and you do not burn your tongue. You can be denied entry to any Disney theme park if you have a visible tattoo considered offensive or inappropriate. The word hippopotamus comes from the Greek hippos, which means horse, and potamos, which means river. Therefore, the name hippopotamus is equivalent to river horse. The first phone with a touchscreen was released in 1994. It was manufactured by IBM, and, in addition to the touchscreen, it could send emails and had calendar and organizer functions. It is considered by many to be the first smartphone. Humans have been sailing for more than 8,000 years. That is 1,500 years longer than we have been using the wheel. The first vessels were simple rafts and canoes, used for fishing, exploring, and transporting people between nearby islands and rivers. The tongue of a blue whale can weigh as much as an elephant. It can weigh up to 6,614 pounds and is large enough for several people to stand on it at the same time. Slot machines in casinos traditionally have fruit symbols because of regulations from the early 20th century that prohibited card symbols. The inventor of the first machines decided to draw fruits on them, and the tradition has remained until today. There is actually no difference between frozen food and fresh food. Frozen vegetables and fruits retain their nutrients, and the cold even helps slow the loss of their nutritional properties. Lesotho, in Africa, is the only country in which all of its territory is located above approximately 3,280 feet above sea level. In the past 25 years, more than 90% of the total monarch butterfly population has disappeared, and it is expected to soon enter the threatened species category on the lists of the International Union for Conservation of Nature. A woman in Brazil prayed to a figure of Saint Anthony for years until she discovered it was actually an action figure of the elf Elrond from the Lord of the Rings movies. Former United States President Herbert Hoover and First Lady Lou Henry Hoover knew how to speak Chinese and always spoke to each other in that language to avoid being understood. The region of Almería in Spain, despite its dry climate, produces an important portion of the fruits and vegetables sold in Europe. Methods such as imported soil and hydroponics are used, and it is the place with the most greenhouses in the world. There are so many that they can be seen from space. At McDonald's in the Philippines, you can order pasta with tomato sauce and fried chicken. Cold water has negative calories. Your body has to spend energy to warm it up. The new owners of the house featured in the series Breaking Bad as Walter White's home had to install a tall fence because people kept going there to throw pizzas onto the roof, imitating one of the show's most iconic scenes. The giant Goliath bird-eater tarantula is completely harmless to humans. It only attacks if bothered, and its bite causes much less pain than a wasp sting. It can also defend itself by releasing irritating hairs that affect the skin and eyes. The Greek philosopher Anaxagoras was the first person to correctly explain eclipses. He also had the theory that the sun is a star, a burning rock in space. And he was right. The digital effects of the movie Jurassic Park were so revolutionary that they inspired filmmakers to create more ambitious projects. For example, it inspired George Lucas to begin working on the Star Wars prequels, and Peter Jackson to finally decide to film the Lord of the Rings adaptation. To save money on taxes, most Converse shoes have a layer of felt, which makes them classified as slippers and not shoes in customs. That way they only pay 3% in taxes. The best way to deal with spam or scam phone calls is to answer but not say anything. That way, the system will mark it as no response and remove your number from the list, since if you hang up or do not answer, the system will call you again later. The only living things that can be permanently seen from space are corals, specifically the Great Barrier Reef near Australia. Large populations of krill can also be seen from space, but only at certain times. The first Mexican movie that was filmed came out in 1918. It was called Santa and starred Lupita Tovar. The apples you buy at the grocery store may have been picked up to 10 months earlier. Farmers have a way of storing them covered in wax, so they may not be as fresh as they seem. In the year 532, a fight between two groups of fans of different chariot racing teams was recorded in Constantinople, in the Roman Empire. The conflict escalated to the point that the riots destroyed half the city and caused the deaths of more than 30,000 people. He-Man was created as a toy before he had his animated television show. When proposing the toys, the sales representative told Mattel executives that they were working on the cartoon. However, nothing had actually been created yet. Scarlett Johansson auditioned for the lead role in the movie The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but she did not get it because she was considered too sensual for the role. In the end, the actress who got the role was Rooney Mara. It is very easy to grow your own pineapple at home. You only have to remove the top part of a normal-sized pineapple and plant it. After a few days, you will see how a new pineapple begins to grow.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.